And yeah, it was really frustrating because I just wasn't being taken seriously because I didn't want to have a baby.
Welcome to Mom Meets World, a podcast talking all things motherhood, friendships, and life. We're your hosts, Elena Brookmeyer
and Peyton Saraiva. We have a lot of ground to cover, so let's dive right in.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Welcome back to another episode. We do have an amazing guest on today. Her name is Nikki Warren, and she is a naturopath. She is a medical herbalist and the founder of NaturoBest, which is actually an award-winning prenatal supplement brand. So super fancy. We feel very honored to have this chat with her coming up. And she shares so much information that you wish you knew ahead of time. It's one of those mind-blowing things, each sentence she said. It does get a little sciencey, but I'm serious, you guys, the takeaway is so big, especially if you're a woman, right, in general, or you're trying to conceive, or maybe you're currently pregnant, all these things. So I think you're going to get so much out of this episode. What do you think of it?
Oh, I loved it. And I even have some ties with her personally with PCOS. She touched on endometriosis and her journey on how to become a mother. So it's a really good one, guys. I feel like you guys are going to take a lot away from it. She also has some kind of a range of supplements out now, but I really felt it was great for her to come on and talk to about it. And I actually already ordered her supplements for our prenatal journey. So really good. But so how did you go with Ben being gone all last week? Tell me on your week. How is everything?
Yes. It's just if anyone else can relate, if your husband goes on trips here and there and nothing super consistent, I swear maybe average, he's gone a few days, maybe each month on average, right? So I think that me in preparation of each trip that he's on, and then when I'm in it, I'm okay, I'm solo, right? I kind of go in survival mode and planning mode and thinking I have to take on the world. So this, current week that we're in, that we're currently recording in, he's home, right? So I'm going out of the weekend and into this week. He's why do you seem a little extra stressed, right? What's going on with you? And I'm I don't know. I think it's I'm still in that survival go mode. It's hard for me to transition out of okay, I'm on my own. And now I actually do have my partner at home helping me. And I can expect him to be home by 5 or 6 p.m. So anyways, but yeah, the week itself without him went fine. As well as it could have, I guess, but things always get a damper on when the little ones get sick, because Chloe started getting her sick symptoms midweek. And then now I've got a little teeny bug, nothing crazy, but it's just one of those that pokes at you. So I don't know. It's just, yeah, we got through it. It was fine. But from our previous, or not previous, but a few episodes ago when we talked about setting yourself up for success, when your partner's out of town or whatever, I kind of took those in my back pocket and I was just okay, what do I just want to have binging on the TV at night when I'm able to put my feet up, or when Chloe's napping, and what meal do I want to cook? So I cooked my favorite meal. And so, yeah, that was good. That got me through it. And now it's just nice that I can breathe. And I'm glad that Ben kind of pointed that out to me, that I needed to kind of wake up and realize he's actually going to be home. It's okay. You can breathe. So we actually took Chloe to the doctor's, the pediatrician, yesterday because of her cold. And typically they say wait 10 days until the sickness symptoms start to relieve themselves. And if they don't by those 10 days, then take her in. She probably has a sinus infection, whatever. So then I was just well, she has this wet or loose cough, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to be that annoying parent that takes in her kid every 3 days that her kid's sick. But I was let me just do this. Let me just calm myself. And so I took her in and she's supposedly fine. But anyways, Ben was actually able to meet us there at the pediatrician. So that was really nice. And I was just man, he is home. It's good to have him home. So that was our week. Yeah. And we did a lot of outdoor stuff this past weekend, even though Chloe was a little sicky and had some extra tantrums. But we went out hiking, when we get the kids outside in the fresh air, the sun hits their skin and they're oh yes, like I feel a little good, but then yeah, the tantrum hits a little bit extra hard. But hiking and
Yeah.
fishing, so that felt nice. Just a little bit of fresh air does a lot. What about you guys? What have you been up to?
Well, I did want to say Happy International Women's Day
Yeah,
belated. So that's a big one. I love doing this podcast with you, and shout out to
heck
all
yeah.
the women on the podcast. Or, it's just it's an amazing thing. So that was kind of a highlight. I went to an International Women's Day event this past weekend, and it was pretty inspiring. I got to hear a woman named Helena Dokic, and she is a fourth in the world tennis player. But her main story is she is a survivor of abuse. She's a survivor of neglect and absolute trauma. Um, and she had a documentary recently come out, but she's actually written 2 books. And so it was really amazing to sit and like listen to her. And this, the event I went to, they had actually already had her booked, but then all of a sudden she surprised the world with this documentary that came out. It's on Amazon Prime. It's called Unbreakable. And it was so cool to have her in the flesh. And I won a little prize, and I actually got to
Oh,
meet her too. So
what?
I was one of, yeah, so like I like to do little raffles and like kind of enter in. So I bought a couple raffle tickets, and there's a couple big prizes I was really after, but I also knew that if you won a raffle, then you also got to take a picture with her and kind of meet her and chat a little bit. So it was really awesome because I won like a cool-ish gift. It's diving with some sharks up in Bateman's Bay. It's like kind of like a
What?
snorkel dive
I
thing.
think that's
Yeah. So
cool.
like it's cool. I also kind of did that recently with my sisters-in-law and Chase at Christmas. But it's like it'll be super fun, and I am looking forward to it. But it was cool because I also got to go up and meet Helena, and it was amazing. She's a really tall, beautiful, inspiring woman, and let me tell you, there was sometimes during her speech that there wasn't a dry eye in the room. I mean, the abuse and the
I could
beating and
imagine.
like all the things she went through, but also came out and was able to be number 4 in the world in tennis and compete with all these people. And, she was the strongest person for herself because she would literally die if she wasn't. And so I feel like there was a lot of takeaway for me I had as like parenting. And in life, we go, we all have our own silent journeys and battles we're going through behind the scenes, but we all have to show up every day for our kids and for our partners or for life. And obviously, I hope that none of your experiences are as traumatic as hers. And if they are, like there is help. But it was on International Women's Day that she was speaking, and she actually just had so many takeaways on like how we need to protect women and how it needs that like the blame needs to change on men, and but also just like protecting each other was such an important part of that. So it was a really awesome, evening event. It was like banquet style, got to get all dressed up, and it was really fun. And I went with my girlfriend, and that was like a really big takeaway. And I'm just gearing up. Chase is going out of town for 8 days, leaving this
Mm-hmm.
weekend. So we're going to go camping Friday to Sunday, and then he takes off to go to New Zealand once he's home. So I'm taking all the notes that you just said, buckling up, getting like packing the house full of meals, getting ready to have a week, 8 days solo with Cooper.
Oh my goodness. It's going to be like a big milestone for you. Like once you get through that, like the big one, right? Like
Yeah,
then that's going to be your check off your list. I can do anything.
I can
But
do.
rely on
How
your
about that?
friends for sure, like your friends who are local. And obviously we'll squeeze in some FaceTimes here and there too, like some little dates just to like socialize. Cause I mean, when I have been out of town, I feel a little bit, extra unsocial, right? You need to have that cup filled. And I know that's big for you too.
Absolutely. So, well, I love you, and I can't wait for you guys to hear this episode with
Yeah,
Miss Nikki. Elena, are you ready to do it?
I think so. Let's dive in.
All right, guys. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Nikki Warren, a degree-qualified fertility naturopath, medical herbalist, and the founder of NatroBest, an award-winning prenatal supplement brand. Nikki's journey into naturopath was deeply personal, sparked by her own health struggles with polycystic ovarian syndrome and the challenges she faced during pregnancy. We are so excited to have her dive into her story, the science behind the products, and the insights on fertility and prenatal health. Welcome, Nikki.
Hi, how you going?
So good. So good to hear another Australian accent on the call.
I was actually just thinking that this is our first guest who's actually from Australia, which is like mind blowing because like Peyton's been out there for well over a year now, and we've been having guests come on and off our show. And so I'm just like, yeah, we finally get to have someone from down under.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, so happy to have you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so as you said, I became a naturopath. I was actually previously a flight attendant.
Okay.
But it was my journey with PCOS that led me into becoming a naturopath, and that was when I was 28. I decided to start studying naturopathy, and then I became a fertility naturopath. Went on to study more, a bit more. Became a herbalist. I did a bachelor in health science, and then I had a second baby. So I was pregnant with Taylor, my first child, when I was studying, and and then I had my second child, and then that led to NatroBest. So So do you want me to tell you about my journey with PCOS?
Yes,
Please?
absolutely. Well, first of all, how did you get from being a flight attendant to studying like a naturopath and that? How did that kind of journey come about?
Sure. So, I guess it started. And this is my journey with PCOS. So it started with me going on the pill. When I was 15, I went on the pill, and then I gained a bit of weight at that stage, and learned that was quite normal from going on the pill. Didn't think anything of it. Switched pills a few times when I was 20. I was just sort of not happy with the side effects and things, and trying to find the right thing, and then and gained about 10 kilos in that year of switching pills, and then went off the pill. Over the next year after that, then I eventually lost the weight. Went back on it again when I was 27, and it was going back on it then that I was only on it for 5 weeks. I was gaining weight at a rapid rate, and then still gaining weight when I went off it again. And I thought, that's weird. This is the second time this has happened to me. What is going on here? So I started going to specialists and desperately trying to figure out what was going on. I didn't get my period back. This was a few months later after coming off the pill. I still had my period back. So I went to see doctors and said, I really think that this is related to me not having a cycle, and I really want to, get my period back. And they're like, oh, why? Do you want to have a baby? And I said, no, I just want to be a woman. I just want to have my child. And I had acne on my chin as well. And I was kind of relating all of the things together. And it was really frustrating because I just wasn't being taken seriously because I didn't want to have a baby. I was just wanting to get my cycle back and wanting to lose weight, and nothing was working. I was going to the gym, I was eating well, I was doing all the right things, and the weight just wouldn't shift. And so anyway, so I sort of, over the year, I went to see a homeopath and an acupuncturist and all sorts. I started getting into the, I wasn't getting anywhere with doctors, so I started getting into natural therapies, and eventually I went into a health food store one day, and there was a student naturopath in there, and she was trying to practice on women that have PCOS or endometriosis. And I should add, actually, at this stage, I'd actually had a diagnosis of PCOS. So, yes, and so I went to see her and thought, I've got nothing to lose. It was free, a free consultation. I had no idea what it was. Yeah.
Can't beat it.
Yeah. And then so she said, I'm going to give you some herbs. And I said, I don't really like herbal tea. And it was actually a liquid herbal tincture that she gave me. And that's revolting. Like, it is horrible getting it down. It's like 8 mils twice a day. And oh God, I rang her up and, I said, I just can't do this. It's disgusting. And she said, no, mix it with some juice, have a juice as a chaser. You just got to get it down. Anyway, I'm glad I persevered, because 3 weeks later I got my period, and then the acne started to disappear, and then the weight started to drop off, and I was like, holy shit, what are these things? Herbs.
Yeah.
So then I started studying while I was flying, and then discovered about 9 months later I was still taking the herbs, not realizing that, of course, bringing my cycle back to, being a regular cycle, I was making myself more fertile. And I had a whoops, that was my first daughter. So I wasn't actually in a relationship at the time. I met her father and discovered I was pregnant. But, I was thinking, well, I might never have a baby because I've got PCOS. And so, went ahead and had Taylor. And, and I couldn't leave her at home. I was a single mum. I had to quit flying. And I'd started studying naturopathy just out of my own interest, and decided to pursue that even more, and started a clinic when she was 3. and specializing in being a fertility naturopath, because, by that time I'd really accumulated the knowledge about everything that I wanted to know. Because a lot of it is not, when you're studying, you're basically studying the basics of anatomy and physiology and herbal medicine and things like that. But you don't really go into detail about specializing in something. And so I started doing lots of webinars and, with anything that I could get my hands on, because this is in the days before, before there was a lot of information on Google, and also we didn't have ChatGPT back then. You didn't have access to the same information that you do now. Even YouTube wasn't, really around. So that was awesome, getting access to these amazing naturopaths that have been around for years, and their wisdom and knowledge, and I really learned from them, actually. And and then so I had terrible morning sickness with Taylor when I was pregnant. Probably wasn't helped by being an air hostess and through the night, and that was terrible. And so I learned everything I could before having my second child about prevention of morning sickness, or what I could take in the first trimester. And while I was pregnant with Phoenix, when I was studying towards my Bachelor of Health Science, and I did a paper on morning sickness. And so that's when I did a lot of the research behind, and learned that iron can cause nausea if you take iron supplements in the first trimester. And learned all about the doses to have of the vitamin B6 and the ginger. Taking high doses of zinc can cause nausea. High doses of B vitamins like your B1, B2, B3, that can make you feel nauseous as well. So I learned everything I could. When I was pregnant with Phoenix, I wasn't happy with the quality of supplements that were on the market. And so I actually had made, at a compounding pharmacist, prenatal trimester 1.
Wow.
When I designed it for myself, used it on myself, it worked really well for me, started using it with my clients, and it was working really well for them. And then I thought, wow, I've got to take this to the market, because nobody's done a set formula for trimester 1 before. And and that's how NatroBest was born. And so I started that when Phoenix was years old. So it's been quite a journey.
That's amazing. I have so many things I want to jump in and add, or question, or I don't know, you just gave us so much information, and I feel like I can relate to all of it. So I currently have PCOS and I have endometriosis.
Wow.
And so I'm kind of seeing a lot of mirrored conversations with your life with mine. And just I was 15 years old when I was put on the pill just to make your periods regular, because I was never regular. So I feel like that's this tale as old as time. And then I found out I had blood clotting disorder, so I couldn't be on the pill anymore, but my cycles never regained. So I actually started to see, as our fertility process started with our son, Cooper, I ended up seeing a fertility acupuncturist in Sydney, and kind of was doing I was doing acupuncture, and I was doing all these different methods to kind of just get my cycle regulated again. But herbal teas were one of the things, taking just anything. A lot of the things you've been saying is really dinging in my head. And so your story is amazing. And I find it's just so much relations to that. And my girlfriend, Ellie, who's the one who recommended me to kind of have a chat with you or whatever, she was like, oh, if you guys are starting to take your prenatals again, because my husband and I are in the process of our second child, she's like, try to find a prenatal that has no iron in it or low doses of iron, because that's what causes morning sickness. So that's kind of how she put me onto you, and kind of just started chatting about the iron, and you were telling me about the zinc levels. And I'm currently taking, which I've now ordered your supplement, so don't worry. I just did a big order last week, so don't worry. But I'm currently taking Elevate, and after she was telling me about the doses of iron and all that, I was looking at the bottle of Elevate that I'm taking, and I'm like, yep. Yeah. Check lots and lots and lots and lots of additives and fillers into the products. So I'm super intrigued by your products and everything.
Yeah. And another problem with Elevate and a lot of those sort of cheaper brands is that they use the cheap raw materials that don't get absorbed in the body either, especially if you're lacking the enzymes to convert them from the synthetic form into the active form. So but in the case of the iron that they have in there, that's ferrous fumarate, which is very constipating, and it doesn't absorb very well. And so it might be 60 milligrams. It might look high, but it's not going to absorb anyway. And so you're better off having a smaller dose of iron bisglycinate, which is going to absorb, and it's not going to compete with other minerals for absorption as well. So iron can compete against zinc and calcium for absorption. But if you have iron bisglycinate, we've got the patented Ferroshell, and they've proven that it actually goes through a glycine channel and it doesn't compete against those other nutrients. So it's little tweaks like that. That the average person, of course, is not going to know. Like, you just pick up it, you don't know what you're looking at, and so, yeah, it's really for the average person to figure out what's good quality, what's poor quality. I think the first thing to look for as well is it a tablet or is it a capsule? That's probably the first place that you'd start, because if it's a tablet, it means it's got disintegrants, fillers, binders, a film coating. There's a colorant in the film coating. So the colorant, if it's a white tablet, then, and like, you'd say your paracetamol and all your average tablets out there, they're all white, right? That's titanium dioxide, and that's just been banned in the EU because it causes cancer. It's carcinogenic. So, things like that, like, we avoid colorings and all sorts of things, preservatives and things in our food. But when it comes to supplements, people don't know because you don't actually have to list it on the label. You don't even need to say what excipients are and so most people have no idea what they're actually consuming. You can actually look it up on the TGA's website if you know where to look at each product, but most people wouldn't know what they're looking for anyway. And so that's another part of the journey as well, actually, I suppose, with creating really, really high quality formulas, is that I discovered that I was allergic to pine. And because I'm asthmatic, and a lot of asthmatics are allergic to pine. And pine is actually where the pine trees is where they get microcrystalline cellulose comes from pine trees. So that's a very, very common filler. And we were even using it in our products because every really high quality brand in the world uses it. And I thought, they must have to use it. It must be the thing. It just makes the machinery run faster, and so they can manufacture it faster. That's all it's used for, really. And when I dug into it, and I discovered that it came from pine trees, and the method that they use to extract it from pine trees is actually quite toxic. And I thought, holy shit, I don't want this in my product. And so I went through this journey over the last couple of years trying to figure out what is the best excipient to use that's actually going to, it's going to work. It's going to, because you have to have some excipients, you have to have some. And so I wanted the cleanest possible. And so we've come up with best, I think, mix of excipients that actually helps to stabilize the product, helps it run through the machinery, and is not sourced from toxic materials or from allergens as well. And so the capsules that they actually come in, they can be gelatin, and that can contain sulfites. That's another common allergen as well. Or V-caps. V-caps come from pine trees. We're the only ones in the world using pullulan capsules. And so I had to source those. So I had to go to the manufacturers and try and figure out, and so pullulan's just ubiquitous in nature. It's a polysaccharide. It's very, very natural, but it also has very good oxygen protection. So, we're the only ones in Australia using them. There's a couple of companies over in the UK that are using pullulan capsules, but we're the only prenatal in the world using them. And the only prenatal in the world using hydroxycobalamin, which is the natural form of vitamin B12 that comes from food. So in Elevate, they use cyanocobalamin. That is cyanide attached to cobalamin. I don't want that in my product.
Doesn't sound good.
Doesn't sound good. You can use methylcobalamin, which is an active form of vitamin B12, but hydroxycobalamin, think of that as the top layer that converts into both active forms. So you've got your methylcobalamin and your adenosylcobalamin. That's what you want. You want things to be as natural as possible, so your body does the conversion that it needs to do. And same as folate. You don't want folic acid. That has to go through several biochemical steps to become active folate. Ours is just active folate. So those ingredients are way more expensive, and that's why companies don't use them, because they're more concerned with their shareholders and profit margins than they are the quality of the product.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. So
it sounds like I was just going to say, like, it sounds like you've thought out literally every step, every ingredient, like everything is so well thought out with like what goes into each of your products. And like, kind of like you mentioned already, for the average person, like I consider myself the average person, like everything that you're saying, I'm like mind blown, like I don't know these things. And I wish that I did. And I wish that our healthcare providers, like I'm in the US, like I'm in Arizona. And so I just wish that, worldwide, of course, that like all healthcare providers would tell us, especially when we're trying to conceive, right? We're going to be like carrying these little babies inside of us, and we need to be as healthy as possible and be very like aware of all of these little things that could really add up to a big thing. So I think that's like so inspiring that you did so much research based off of your own experience, and then it's led you here today and like providing such quality, products for us women to consume. And I know it's not just for women going through this like process, but yeah, it's very inspiring.
To be fair, I don't think the health providers actually know. It wasn't until I got manufacturing that I learned about this, and I didn't know what went into a tablet either, because it's not on the label, and supplement companies aren't going to offer, this is what we put into our supplements, unless they're like ours and we're very clean. And so we go, we're very ultra low excipient, and these are the only excipients that we have. So most of them aren't actually going to say that. And, things like knowing that VCAPs are from pine, health professionals aren't going to know that sort of stuff. That's even manufacturers, they didn't even know. It wasn't until I did my own and went to the source and said, where do you source this from? What trees does this come from? Yeah. And then I got the feedback. And so, one of the manufacturers actually is owned by, it's a cardiothoracic surgeon on the side. He owns it.
Okay.
Yeah. And him and I had lunch one day, and he said, because of your health issues, you're going to discover things that other people just haven't pieced together yet. And I was like, I totally agree. I don't think anyone else has actually pieced all of these things together. And with the pine thing, that wasn't until a friend of mine who also has asthma said to me, because she took my menopause formula, and she said, I hadn't taken supplements forever, and I took the supplements, and my asthma came back, and that's weird. Is she allergic to one of the herbs in there? What would cause that? And that's what led me to discover about the microcrystalline cellulose and the capsules. And I thought, okay. And I was crazy up taking supplements, so I can't take any other brand but mine now, because every other brand has microcrystalline cellulose in it, or it'll contain the B caps or gelatin capsules, and I can't have those either. And so,
So I have to say, my job safety right there is just like, you have to keep this up in order to take it yourself. So we know that you're going to stick around.
Yeah. So that's a good thing. I get to make supplements that I can take myself. So which is
okay.
good.
This is like, my mind is blown, because I've never had asthma in my life. And then I moved to Sydney, and I was like trying to figure out what I'm allergic to. And maybe something I was taking down here. And I mean, again, I took capsules in America, don't get me wrong, but like our trying to conceive journey started in Sydney, but I was taking obviously paracetamol, which we have here, but in America, we call it a different thing. So the formulas could be different, or the fillers could be different. And I was like using an inhaler for the first time, and I was using all of these like things in Sydney that I hadn't ever experienced it. And then when we moved back to America, it felt like my asthma went away. And again, now we lived in Sydney for 2 years, got stuck there because of COVID, moved back to America to have our son and to be closer to family. And then we felt there was unfinished business in Australia. So just now, a year ago, we moved back, and now we live far south coast. And I've noticed that since we've been back down here, I'm allergic to something again, or I'm having these asthma attacks in the middle of the night, or I'm having trouble breathing. And so I'm quite intrigued now what it is in my little world.
I actually wonder if it's environmental, though, because whenever I would play when I was a flight attendant, my allergies were better overseas, even in places where the air quality was really poor. Considering we've got very clean air.
Very.
There is something in the air, I think, that maybe that we're allergic to down here. Yeah.
That's so crazy.
I get the same thing. I get, my allergies haven't, because I still have allergic rhinitis, and so I still have those sort of environmental allergies, and they are definitely worse here than they are overseas. Yeah, it is, and New Zealand as well. And also it comes out when it's raining, and that's a real environmental thing, because the pollens will sort of come out when it's raining. So that could be what it is. You might need to have a skin prick test,
something like that.
Yeah.
Oh. So as a natural, as a fertility naturopath, what common misconceptions do you encounter regarding women's reproductive health?
Yeah, probably the biggest one that was the biggest surprise for me was, and it's something that I sort of always knew even before I was a naturopath, was that your fertility declines significantly as you get older. And women used to come and see me and they were 42 or even older. Oh, I want to have a baby. And they had no idea how difficult it is to actually have a baby after the age of 40. It's not impossible, but it is very difficult. And the risk of having a Down syndrome baby or, a baby with a chromosome abnormality is very high, especially if the father is also older as well. And I think that's something that women need to be aware of. And a lot of women are freezing eggs now, which is a great idea. But I almost think that I wonder what's going to happen in the future, and I wonder if society is going to change a bit, because I don't really think there's anything wrong with having babies in your 20s. Going back to having babies when we're younger and by the time because I think a lot of people think, oh, no, I want to build my career and I want to do this and I want to do that. But we probably, I've got friends of mine that are over in LA and Vegas at the moment, and they're having the time of their lives. She fell pregnant when she was 21, so she never got to experience all the things that we did in our 20s, and but I spent half of my 20s partying and just wasting my money on alcohol. So if I could take those years back again, and we're the most fertile when we're 23, and so maybe we've kind of got it wrong in society that we're kind of delaying things, and we could actually raise our children when we're younger. Have the crap furniture, which is going to get wrecked by kids anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, rather than trying to build ourselves and get money behind us and then, and buy a house and do all of these things. I think we put pressure on ourselves when we're younger to do all of those things so that we can have this good, a great time when we're parenting. But maybe we should do it the other way around and have our lives a little bit later, when we're in our 40s and 50s, and start traveling then and having fun then, and we're more mature and going to make better decisions then. So I just think that women should think about not thinking that IVF is just, oh, well, I'll just go and do IVF. I think that's another thing that women do think as well. And IVF has quite a low success rate generally, especially for women over the age of 40. So I would be, maybe freeze your eggs, but maybe think about having babies a little bit earlier and having your life and building a career a bit later. It's not too late when you're, 40 plus to build a career. Yeah. So I think that was one that shocked me anyway, was just, I even had a 47-year-old woman come to see me wanting to have a baby. And I was like, are you serious? Okay. Hey, why don't you have a baby? But I said, usually women come to see me with perimenopause at 47, not wanting to have a baby. So, I don't know. I don't know where this idea is coming from that we can delay it and, you can try to have babies earlier.
I think people like always have this idea that you have to live your life and that kids are going to totally like change or end your life, right? So like people try to just cram it all in beforehand until they are ready to settle down. And then like kind of what you're saying, it might be too late if people don't know.
Yeah. And maybe they're trying to hang out for Mr. Right. And, half the time it's not Mr. Right anyway, even if you do wait until you're 35 or whatever, half the time, some of the couples that I would see, and they would go down the track of IVF and all of that, and maybe it was the stress of all of that broke them up, but they would have these babies and they would end up breaking up anyway. So, I don't think just wait for Mr. Good Enough.
Good enough.
Yeah.
Oh, so how I have like one more question for you. How do you balance being a mom and running a business and kind of like juggling all of that? Because it's quite inspirational for all of us.
Yeah, it's difficult. I prioritize sleep, and especially because I'm going through perimenopause now, and sleep is quite hard to come by. You have these waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning sort of thing. And so I go to bed early. I go to bed at 8:30 every night. So if I wake up at 3, I know I'm not going to get back to sleep again. I just get up and I start working, and I go to Pilates 3 times a week. I walk every day, and I make sure that I don't drink alcohol because that's going to keep me awake. So it's all of those sort of lifestyle measures. My daughter is actually about to turn 20, so she's a great help. She's like having a second mum in the house. Yeah, and so that's really good. My son is 11. And I have shared custody between my ex-husband and I, and so it's 1 week on, 1 week off. So that definitely helps when it comes to I get a lot of work done on that week that I don't have him, on the week that I have him, I prioritize him and spending time with him. Although he'd probably prefer to be on his screen and playing video games.
Classic.
Yeah. So yeah, it's difficult. It is very difficult. I think that the most difficult years were when I was a single mum in the early days of having Taylor, trying to study full time and look after a toddler was not easy. But yeah, got through that, and then when I was married for my second baby, that was a lot easier. We had a deal actually that. Because both of us weren't particularly good sleepers. And so I said to him, look, if you sleep in another room, I will have Phoenix in with me every night. And so he just used to sleep in bed with me. So much easier when you're breastfeeding. And I said, as long as you bring me a cup of tea in the morning when I text you, and you cook dinner every night, I'm happy. You can sleep. And I don't get to, I don't have to cook dinner. So, so that was great. It worked out really well.
Sounds like a really good compromise. I love that. I might be implementing that in our house for the next round.
Yeah. That's what it's all about, like balance, right? Like just finding balance and like finding a routine, what works for everyone involved. But it sounds like a huge thing that works for you is prioritizing your own self and well-being and health. So that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if I don't sleep, life falls apart. It's not good. Yeah. So, I take my stress and sleep and my calcium and magnesium powder at night, and that really helps. So I sort of drift off to sleep watching TV, which I know is a really bad habit, but that helps.
It works.
It works, yeah.
Last question? Sorry, I said that, but I want to know what's next for your company. So I know you've got a prenatal brand. You also have some supplements for males, like for that trying to conceive journey. But tell us about a little bit more about your products and where all of our listeners can find you.
Yeah, sure. So, they can find us at NatroBest.com. So that's NatroBest.com. We have got a brand refresh coming in July, so that's pretty exciting. Yeah, so it's going to be a bit funny, in between stage when we've got old products with the old branding and the new products coming in. So yeah, it's going to be a bit mucky for the first year, but yes, that's an exciting thing. And on the horizon, I would love to come back actually and speak to you in July, because we have got a major initiative coming out in July, but I can't talk about it yet. So, yeah.
So let's book you in for July.
Yes.
But yeah, all good things coming. Yeah. So it's very exciting. And going into Dubai, actually, we're launching in Dubai in September.
Oh,
congratulations.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge market, I think. Yeah.
That'll be great. Awesome.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, thanks so much for sharing just all of that knowledge and like experience with us and our listeners. Obviously, everyone who's listening, I'm sure is gaining so much information, and just like, you're just like a joy to chat with anyway. So we're excited already for what you have to share in July, right? We're going to mark our calendars already. But yeah, thank you so much for hopping on and doing this with us. It was fun.
Thank you for having me. It's been really good. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next week. Thank you. Bye. Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of Mom Meets World. If you enjoyed listening, please give us a like, subscribe, and find us on Instagram at Mom Meets World Pod.
Because sometimes you just need another mom to remind you that you're getting it right more than you're getting it wrong. See you next time.